Okay. Welcome everyone. Looks like everyone found the food and the tea and the treats. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about, this is an evening for new homeschoolers. So even if you're not new and you're a veteran homeschooler, welcome. Excuse me, while I throw my pen. Veteran. If you're a veteran, don't read into that. Oh goodness. Okay, so today I have with me Jessica Dunning, Madison Holloway, and we're going to just have a conversation about their experience as homeschool moms. I've done a lot of talking about this, and it's all on my YouTube channel. So if you're joining us, if you're new, or if you maybe aren't new and you just want a refresher, you can go back to our YouTube channel. You can look at some of the talks that we've posted before. So for tonight, though, we're just going to have a conversation, and you're going to hear about some of their experiences. So let's start then with you, Madison. Tell us a little bit about your family. Like how many children do you have? How long have you been homeschooling? Anything that you're comfortable with sharing.
I have 5 children. Officially, that I also 10 kids and was homeschooled and so I have that experience as well.
You're a second generation homeschooler.
I am a second generation homeschooler, yes.
That's really neat.
And happy to say that.
Well, anything else you wanted to share with us about? But I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I'm from Texas, so that may or may not affect my personality.
Well, welcome to Canada.
I do it, you know.
Yeah. Okay, and Jessica, do you want to share your family?
Yeah, sure. I have 4 kids. We've got a 12-year-old boy and then 3 girls.
Okay, so 7 years for both of you. That's a healthy start.
So yeah.
Okay. So this is just a big question that a lot of people have to come to decide for themselves. But what led both of you and your husbands and in your family context, what led you to decide to homeschool your kids? Jessica, sure.
Okay. Yeah, so we had not planned to homeschool our oldest school, and it was a great experience. And then when it was time to register her in kindergarten, we were in a school district that we heard terrible things about. So it became an issue of like private school or do we? Yeah, we had a family in our church had 6 kids, and so garden. Oh, read some books, walk outside. And we were really blessed to have very too. So our educators and they were like, do it, it'll be great. And my husband too said to me, like, just try it. And if it goes bad, we can put them in school. Like they have to take him. Right in Canada to be educated. So yeah, so we gave it a try and and then every year I think we
saved the front for the latecomers. It's just
come on up. It's nice.
I've only thrown my pen once so far.
Didn't hit anyway.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. yeah, so we are always aware of the fact that could put them in school.
But it's nice to have that like assurance that like
Yeah.
if anything happens, you can put them in school. So deciding to homeschool isn't like, hey, that's it, you're locked in now.
Yeah, it was a big deterrent for me initially because I kind of panicked and I was like, I can't do this for the next like 20 years of my life. That's so long. And then to have my husband say, put them in, or if one child would like flourish in a school setting, like you don't have to homeschool all of them forever. And to just have that flexibility, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What led you to
Yes.
decide to homeschool?
Like I said, I was from had a wonderful experience. Well, probably more than just expected. I had that. That was one of the first questions I asked my husband if I was getting to know him long distance. He was up there at that time. He was actually very open because become familiar with it. He was comfortable with it. He was kind of expressing like, we need help. We could know that at some point we could put him in if we needed to, kind of like that. But that was so that was I don't. Other
Right.
Homeschooled in Texas.
Yes.
Different options.
It's kind of interesting to hear your perspective, like as someone who was homeschooled. So for you, it wasn't like this kind of major decision of life changing epic proportions.
Yeah.
Does anybody even do this? But
Yeah.
for you, it's more like, oh well, that's a
Yeah,
normal
it's a
thing
way
to do.
It is, and actually, it would have been a huge life change in school for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew kids that grew up with great, sometimes they weren't great, and not homeschooling.
Yeah.
So I know that that's it.
Yeah.
Helps.
Yeah. That's a beautiful story, like how you got there. So you mentioned something about community, like your husband was involved in a church that had a lot of homeschool families. So how does that impact you, or did it then, and maybe even ongoing? Like how does that impact your homeschooling? Do you have a rich community that supports you in it, or do you find that that's maybe one of the areas where you feel alone, or like what is that feeling for you?
We are still part of that church.
Wow.
With when yes, it's been. I guess for me, the first part was homeschooling. The options are different. And I was like toddler, and I was already like, well, I'm definitely not enrolling with that school, and probably that school. And I had all these. I was looking at curriculum, they were babies.
Yeah.
I think that I have to be a bit intentional about outside of that. And I was kind of on my own, and I'm going to join it even on my that homeschool because I know more people around. Besides the ones I know, I want to kind of expand that. I did start making this. Not all of them were like into big connections, but I at least felt like I knew there were others.
Right, because there's so many different ways to homeschool, right? And so it's nice to know like all these communities are out there, and maybe you plug into one because that's really your style, but there's a lot that you won't plug into, but that that's really neat to know how many different options there are.
And it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people, actually not what I wanted.
Right.
It was like a different style, a different option.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't perceive myself even doing that. But I was so happy to learn friends. We
Yeah.
can still learn from each other. And that's why I kind of started here.
Yeah, no, that absolutely does. I love that because there are so many different ways, and you're able to teach your children the way it works for your family and the way your husband and you have to meet your world using your expectations, right? And you don't have to meet the one size fits all. It's just so wonderful to be part of such a diverse community, or like an option that has so much diversity within it. Yeah, so we'll have to speak up just a little bit. I'll put mine over here. I just don't want it to get too close. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so Jessica, maybe you could share with us a little bit then. So what does it look like for you? Like, how has your community, like, how did you find community? Did you find community? Like, what does that look like for your family?
Okay, yeah. So my family are like a whole pack of introverts. So not necessarily is it I think we did fantastic, and I was like, man, I wish I would have done that or had the bravery to do that. Honestly, I mean, it feels like such a cop out, but Hester came to my church one Sunday, and our pastor's wife was like, hey, you homeschool, and she homeschools, be friends. And then Hester was like, here, be my friend. I'll teach you homeschool things. And then she introduced me to all the other people I know who homeschool.
So you should come here on Thursday evenings.
Yeah, and then here is like where I've met everybody. So most of our other friends with children, their children are in school. But one of the things and like our nieces are in school and stuff. I really appreciate that all of our family and friends have been very supportive of our choice to homeschool. And aside from every once in a while being like, oh man, I don't know how you do it, which I'm like, I also don't know how you do it. Raising children is difficult. Yeah, people have been very, very supportive of us, and I'm really
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would be like a question as well. Like, extended family, it can be wonderful. It can be a landmine field, all the things. It can be, it comes with its own bag of tricks. So how does that work for you? So how do you include, especially because you're like the only homeschool family in your extended family?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work, and how do you communicate with the others? Like, this is how it is for us.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we have a lot of conversations within our home about how God has given children to specific parents intentionally, and it's that those parents' job to make what they feel like is the best decision for their family. Obviously, our kids are like, how come all these other people we know aren't homeschooling? And up to this point, for the most part, our kids love homeschooling, so they're usually like, come on, guys, it's great. And so, yeah, we just tried to explain to them, like, this is our choice. And we are very, very privileged to be able to homeschool because my husband works a job that we can live off of one income. And that is not the reality for a lot of people in the world. So that's another thing that I tell them often. It's like, it is a huge privilege. And yeah, and I think we haven't really had pushback from family. My in-laws are fantastic at wanting to show up and help out, and they'll be like, "Well, come over and like listen to somebody read or help do a science lesson," and it always ends up in total chaos because the children are like grandparents. But I have learned over the years to just like take those relationships and like them. Like I don't need to have an agenda, and it's fine, and the things didn't get done, but they got to spend time with grandparents who love them really deeply, and my mom will like take them out to the thrift store or like like, I have yard work that I need done, and whatever. So it's yeah, just getting to spend extra time with other generations as well, and yeah, so
Okay, thank you. What does that look like for you, Madison? Because I'm assuming your family doesn't all live here.
None of my family lives here.
Okay, so
yeah,
what does that
my
look like for
family
you?
is all far away. My parents are in Texas, and a lot of my siblings are in Carolina, Costa Rica, and they're kind of all scattered now. So there's not a lot of like interaction in school. Now my mom, having had the homeschool experience, is always happy to like give me advice, and I need to get better at like calling to ask her advice because she has so much good. So
Wow,
really
lucky
good.
you.
No, not all. Not all. A lot of them. She
Yeah.
had more books. She could have probably had. She wanted to have a store. That was her
Okay.
dream.
Okay.
She kept them all stored for so many years. She finally had to start selling them off. She had to have a store. But yeah, I did inherit a lot of her books and materials, which is super fun to
Yeah.
kind of go, oh my goodness, I remember doing this. Oh, I did not like this.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say that my in-laws, they're local, and education is very important to them and always was for their boys growing up. They were not familiar with homeschooling until my husband's friends at the church that we're at started homeschooling. They knew some of them, so that was a bit of an introduction for them too.
Okay.
My husband's one brother for us times more, and they homeschool. So
Okay.
all the grandchildren are homeschooled, so it's super neat to see like the ways that we have connections. That yeah, we do certain things different, but it's all pretty similar, and all the cousins have that. I don't really have any experience of having family support.
Yeah.
Homeschooling, although I do remember
right
when I was younger. I'm coming back to my parents' adult years and saying,
That's
"We're sorry
beautiful.
we ever."
Wow. So you're like really that second generation of just kind of sticking with it and showing like
Yeah,
this
it's like,
this is an option.
worth it.
Yeah.
This is a good route, and sure, I may not be doing everything the way my mom did it
No.
for me, or the way that I was, chose to do it growing up, but cool. Works.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So let's take a little turn here and let's start talking a little bit about like the practical side of it. So you've decided to homeschool, you have your community, you're working with your relatives. Now, maybe Madison, we'll start with you. How did you decide, like how did you initially like choose curriculum, create a plan? What did that look like for you? And how did you initially feel when you started kind of looking into these options?
that was a scary part for me because, like, no laws in Texas, so we
Yes.
did what we wanted, what my mom wanted, and then I came here and I hear there's registered and there's unregistered and there's enrolled, and I'm like, what does all this mean in the first place? And then it scared me or it intimidated me a bit to kind of think if I am tied down to being enrolled, or what does that look like? Do I have to do things that I don't like? Do I have to do? Am I not allowed to do things I do like? I wasn't sure what all this meant. My husband had asked me to be enrolled because that was most comfortable for him because he had never experienced it. So that's what we opted for, and yeah, it was really scary. But
so I'm just going to interrupt you and explain. So here in BC, there's two options when you start to homeschool. The one is called registered, and when you register, you can literally tell any school board, including the local public school down the street, that you're going to homeschool, and you notify the government that you're homeschooling, and they say, that's great. You don't get any support. You get no teacher. You get no money. You get no nothing. You are on your own. That can be a wonderful option. Like if you're like me and you're very opinionated, it's probably for the best. But the other option is to be enrolled. And when you enroll, then you go to a school. Most of the time, it's like an online school or a school that works with homeschooling families, and you tell them you're going to homeschool, and then they will actually assign a teacher to come in and help you to know that you're sort of meeting the BC provincial learning outcomes, and that you get some funding. It's not, it's not really going to make you rich, but it'll pay for a book or two. And they help you to go through your education plan and give you some oversight. So that's kind of the difference between registering and enrolling here in BC. Most families do choose to enroll. That's the largest group of homeschoolers in BC. So yeah.
So we enrolled, and I was super nervous at first because I was like, oh, is this going to really restrict me? And I have all these opinions how I want it to be. I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
And, I was pretty nervous, but that's what my husband wanted. So I was completely okay with submitting to that, saying, okay, well, let's try this. And they're not too bossy.
Yeah.
But I began to recognize over time that there was the support and that was
Yeah,
didn't expect at first.
and the accountability can be really helpful, especially
Super
because
helpful.
sometimes it's like you need to, I don't know, it's nice to know that somebody's going to come in and check in.
Yes.
And that could be
I am not a structured person by nature.
right.
And I need that accountability. Chris was my teacher one year over here. I'm kind of being careful.
And she's still smiling. Look at her.
Lovely.
Oh wow, that's good to hear. That's
She
good.
is such a sweet
Now everyone's going to go try get her.
I know. So what was the original?
So yeah, so
How did I make
yeah, your first
choices?
foray into the curriculum world and planning and
So I kind of just depended on the lady that I talked to on the phone. When I was first enrolling out with the school that we were with, kind of giving me some options. And I kind of wasn't sure how it worked. And, oh yeah, for this you're going to have it, this subject you'll need to pick a curriculum, and then for this subject, and there were so many separate subjects. It was really, and I was like, this is kindergarten. This is so hard. I was really overwhelmed because I guess I also now I was trying to make sure I'm doing it right. Okay, if I'm enrolled, I have to do it right. So that actually did cause me to stress the first few weeks. I got to get it all right, but I feel like this is so much, and I shouldn't be so stressed. It's kindergarten, and then it's first grade, and it just seemed like it was a lot. But through experience, I've come to realize that it doesn't have to be so hard. Enrolled and still do what you want.
yes,
School how you want to.
Yes.
That phrase. But you can definitely have the support and the accountability, but not let it stress me as much
yes,
as I let it stress me at
Yes.
the beginning. And I just started picking things that I liked or I saw that were more of my style and making them work more for us. And so having a teacher that can look at stuff that you're doing and saying, oh, you know what, this checks off this little thing in career, and this checks off things that I'm doing this for language arts or something, and yet it checks off all these other things.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I'm trying to look down the whole checklist on the website of all the things I'm supposed to do. I don't even know what that means. What is that?
Yeah.
What is this lingo? I don't know. I was homeschooled in Texas. This doesn't make sense.
Right. So
I
that
was
teacher.
not homeschooled and not in Texas,
And it
I
still didn't make
was like,
sense.
I don't know what these
It's
are.
a different language.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's where like a teacher can actually be really helpful, where you just teach what you want to teach, and your teacher comes alongside and aligns it to the boxes that need to be checked. So really, if you're going to enroll, do we even need to look at the boxes?
No. And I even had a teacher tell me, look at the boxes, probably going,
Yeah.
you just tell me what you're doing, and I didn't fully get it until I kind of had more experience. Okay, so you don't need me to make sure I'm doing all these things. You'll tell me if I'm not doing something that you need to see.
Yeah.
And that was where the shift happened for me, was just being able to say, I'm going to do what tell me if there's anything else they need to see. They're going to find ways to check off all the boxes by looking at what we're doing.
Mhm.
And that gave me so much more. And also, like, I really,
Right. Yeah. So you were able to just teach your kids.
I don't know
Okay.
if that answers how it
That
should say
absolutely, no, it
it.
absolutely did, because I think, especially going into homeschooling, that I think that's one of the most intimidating things after you've made the decision to homeschool is like we were talking about with communities, right? You're looking at all these different communities and everyone's doing it a different way, which means that are that many different kinds of curriculum out there, right? So how do you know what to pick for your family, what's right for your family?
Want to like do it right, it can be very stressful.
Yes.
Well, which one is the best? Which one is the right one?
Yes.
There's no perfect. There's not one that's just
Right. And so going into that, like, do you think that there is like a right way to homeschool?
for everyone or for me.
Do you think like there's like a standard? This is where everyone should be with homeschooling.
Well, I think family is so. Oh, there's resources I used for one that I'm actually not using for another because it doesn't just.
Right.
So I don't think that there's a right way, like a one right way to homeschool.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's find the way that's right for your family, and you can know if you're kind of not.
Yeah.
If it's not working and it doesn't,
Right.
may just mean
Right. You got to change your method a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm totally on board with everything you said.
Okay. Me too.
How about you, Jessica?
Okay, so we also initially enrolled, I think, because for the structure. And one thing that I found the most helpful was my teacher coming in and being like, "Oh, when he built a robot out of training wheels, that covers these things." And she just made me realize like all of the learning that was happening in my home that I never considered. And so that was incredible. We loved our teacher, and being enrolled gave us access to like a lot of field trips. We plays and like farms and all sorts of stuff. Lots of like lining and like it was. And then we went rogue for a few years. We just registered and we did our own thing, and that was really right for the time that we were at. It gave a lot more flexibility in terms of what the order that we kind of did things. And then by the time our third child was it was last year. Yeah, we enrolled again with a different school. Just ended up needing support for some of our kids, and I needed a little bit more information from professionals who understood the different ways kids learn or the different ways kids' brains work and all kinds of stuff. And so that decision has been really helpful. The school we've been with has given us a lot of knowledge that we did not previously have in a way that's really positively benefited our kids. So again, just like my husband being like, we can put them in school if we need to. Like you don't have to enroll and then enroll till you die, and you don't have to register and register till you die. You don't have to stay with only one school if it's not a fit for you. But I will say the accountability piece, what changed for me this year was that I asked my husband to hold me accountable. So on Sunday night, every week, we sit down and we like make a plan for the week. And then at the end of every day, like before we go to bed, he'll be like, "Okay, how did it go? Did you get the things done?" Because I was like, I need somebody else to know if the things are happening or not, because it's too easy on a really hard day to be like, I don't like just go outside.
Yes.
And that's okay sometimes, and I do it sometimes still, but I'll usually text him and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of just canceling the whole day and going to the lake." And then he'll be like, he'll be like, "Yeah, okay, that's a good idea," or "I really don't think you should do that," and it's good to have. And he's enjoyed being part of our homeschooling. Wasn't before, because before he was like, "I didn't realize like how often you were doing spelling or who was struggling with reading or all those kind of things." So I would say if you're going to register, and obviously depending on your personality, find an accountability partner. It doesn't have to be your husband, it can be your sister or your friend or whoever. But having all of that responsibility only on me to
Now, I'm going to ask a leading question here because I know a little bit more about your homeschool journey.
Okay, yeah.
When your children were quite little and it was like you were starting homeschooling, babies were still a very real thing. So I know that you went and participated in co-op for a little while.
Yes.
So how did that help you? And like, how did that give you kind of that base you need? Because you
Yes.
didn't have family that homeschooled.
Yeah.
You didn't have community that homeschooled. And so what role did a co-op play?
Yes. Okay. So co-op was a game changer for us, and we had, well, spoiler alert, we did co-op with Hester and her kids for a bunch of years, and we had some other families join and leave at like various points. But it was really like there was a stage of life where we had a fourth child, and that transition was significantly more difficult for me than I thought it would be. And she would literally like she carried me for like 6 months. We had co-op on Tuesdays, and we would show up in the morning, and we would do school all day. And I would pack their pajamas because we lived like 45 minutes away, and she would feed us dinner, and then help me pack everyone in the car, and then I just put them all in bed. And it was like that was the one day a week that it was like, okay, everybody can be chaotic together, and there were enough older kids too, like the baby wasn't gonna die, and so you don't. I mean, this is very personality dependent. You don't need a massive village, but you do need a village. You can't do it by yourself because you can't be the only person feeding into your kids. And you're going to burn yourself out, and it's just not cool. But I think you can also burn yourself out trying to make your village. And so, yeah, I like if you can start a co-op, like even like just open your house and be like, okay, on Wednesdays we're having people over, and these are the things we're going to do. That kind of have an anchor point in the week is nice too. And the co-op classes that we had homework, and so that provided structure for the rest.
Yeah, and that like we did that co-op together, and it was good for our family too, and it was good for accountability for me because I knew, hey, we've got co-op on Tuesday, and the kids are showing up, and we got to get our work done, and there's accountability. And for a season, that was just so right for our families. And then, as you both probably can speak to, the children started to get older.
Yes. And they got really smart really fast.
And they started pushing into high school.
Yeah.
Are you there? We're getting there.
You just finished grade 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Madison, how does that look like as the kids get older, right? So, like, as you said, kindergarten is not a big deal. Or it shouldn't be.
Now.
It shouldn't
I think
be.
I said
Right?
it wasn't a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
For a while there.
Right. But as they get older, it does kind of start to become a bigger and bigger deal. Like we should be starting to see some work.
Math gets hard.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it and you're struggling to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that as you realize like the earlier years shouldn't be so hard, and you can kind of let it go a little bit, and you start to find your freedom and you relax, but just in time to start realizing, hey, I need to start making sure these older kids are getting the education they need. Corinne, the honorary.
You really asked her not to do that for me?
Hey, nobody.
She's such a good friend that she didn't listen. You look especially nice tonight.
Yes.
So
You look absolutely beautiful. Welcome. Yeah. So what? Just after you kind of calm down, kindergarten's not such a big deal.
Yeah.
But
Start
now,
getting the hang of things,
yeah, and now it's
but
kind
getting
of
harder.
it's getting
And
serious.
you're adding more kids in.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
it gets harder.
Yeah.
That's where it got stressful.
Yes.
For a bit there, because I'm trying to figure out how does this get harder, get more advanced school work. How do I have time to help her with math that's challenging or something that's hard for her personality, and still help the younger ones that can't read or need my help for sure. I think one thing that has been me is learning to ask for help.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you said with the co-op, I haven't always had co-op options. I've tried a few different things, but not like a consistent. Done a community class through our school, but that didn't cover like some of the main things. But I did in a very stressful season afternoon when my youngest was born, and I was help. Started just I humbled myself and asked a friend whose youngest is just older than mine, and she's very close to me from church, to find someone that I can come and help. Oldest is needing a lot more help. Youngest need my help. Baby, and she was like, I would like to do this for you.
Yeah.
You tell me what day you want me to come, and I will be there. And she is way more consistent than me, like in everything.
She's
like,
not
she
the parent.
got more school done in those 2 hours
Yeah.
than we got on a lot of other days. And so it was just so comforting that, well, at least on Tuesdays we'll be getting some school done. That helped me in the time when my oldest needed more help. My second and third are twins, and they're a year younger than my first. So I always had the next grade coming up. At sixth, they just finished. She's finished sixth grade, and my twins just
Fifth
five.
grade.
Sorry, I'm
Wow.
trying to say Canadian. So it kind of was all of them. All of them. You know, they're still in different levels with math and everything else.
It goes really fast for you, I guess, with like 3 children close in
Yes.
age. Probably can do a lot of
And I can say, wow, I just did this lesson. Oh, I did just do
Yeah.
this lesson with your
Last
sister
year. Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. And then with the twin with yesterday.
Yeah, and they get very upset if one gets ahead. Very upset.
Yeah.
I try to do the same day, and if one is sick and one gets ahead, can I do 2 lessons? She's ahead of me.
So that's interesting. So can you talk to us a little bit about what's it like when you homeschool and parent? How do those things relate to each other, and does it make a difference when you like, do you go into teacher mode and then you're in parent mode, or are you just a parent, or like, how does that work?
On my mood. I have worn things on my head to make it fun. You know, on some days we're doing something really silly. Get up, we're gonna do these funny little dances together because everyone's cranky. And then there's days when I am being more strict and I get distractions. You find that challenging sometimes. Guys, this is school time.
Yeah.
You're playing over here and you're up again. Well, yeah, but you just got up to get a snack. Yeah, well, you were just playing with your sister. So I am not getting a lot of advice in that area and how to manage well, but it is an interesting challenge to try to be guys, this is school time. Even though we're in our living room, or having them get up and do their first 5, there's certain things in the morning. So we're not doing school in PJs. It does help because it kind of sets the tone. We are serious about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is still a challenge. Going to sound like playing today, no problem. And then other days when I have to technical, sorry, I was white. I was wanting to see school getting done, but I need to balance.
Yeah. So Jessica, what about you? Because I know like there came a point when, especially like for me, my kids were really launching into high school, and co-op was just not going to meet our needs anymore. And so where did you go from there?
Yeah, okay. So we had like the gap got big. Like the older ones were really ready to weigh on, and the younger ones were not quite ready. And so it just like Hester was teaching the older kids and I was teaching the younger kids, and it was just getting a little too much, I think. And they weren't having a lot of time to play and hang out, which is what they really wanted. And so we enrolled with an online school called Skole Academy. They're based in the US, and they're phenomenal. Again, I will say this is like a massive privilege because you have to pay out of pocket for the classes, and they're not inexpensive, but the quality of education is I have only phenomenal things to say about it. It's where we learned, for example, that the reason grade 4 math was a slow and painful, torturous process was because my 4th grader was horribly bored and actually needed to skip to grade 6, which I would have never known on my own. So that online classes have been really amazing, especially for our oldest child. This coming year, our second and third children are also in online classes. Our second child is not ready to do online classes quite as early, because all the different personalities are so different. And so that was really that's been a really fantastic resource. And then we needed to step back, and I needed to look at, like, okay, what does homeschool look like in our house for our family? And one of the big changes we made here was we moved to a time slot for homeschool. My house is full of neurodivergent brains, and that means that some days we get a week's worth of work done, and some days we get negative 10 things done. And I was getting my brain does not work that way, and so I was really frustrated. I'm like, why is it taking an hour to do one page of math? What's going on? And so now we just have a block of time. Like, school starts at this time and it ends at this time, and then I keep track. Okay, this day we did these 4 things, and then we start at the bottom of the list the following day, and we just cycle. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically, I just have a chart that's like, it lists things in order of importance, reading, math, whatever, for each kid, because like I have a child that struggles with reading. But and then again with my husband checking in, and he would be like, oh, okay, tomorrow you should probably do spelling because you haven't done spelling. And I would be like, oh yeah, I haven't done spelling in 3 days. And so that has been really helpful. That switch up to a set amount of time has been really good, because one of the things I have struggled with is I don't like my house to be messy. And homeschooling in your house
It's messy.
is messy. And you can't, I hear that in some magical households, you can cook dinner while you're teaching your children. No, if I walk away from the table,
Yeah.
if I walk away from the table, then all of a sudden, like, people are under the table and they built a store and there's a whole play happening and someone's choreographing a dance, and it's fantastic kid learning, but it's not what we are.
It's not the
supposed
learning
to
we
be
were
doing.
looking for.
So, yeah, at one point we had a schoolroom, and that was a disaster because no one's anything except distracting each other. And then I put an armchair down there because I was like, I have to at least read a book, because I can't just sit here and stare at you not doing your math and just scream into the void. And then I was like, this is, we're not having a schoolroom anymore. So we just have baskets and transport wherever we happen to be. But having the set time lets me allocate the rest of my day. So like, laundry still can happen and dinner can still get made, and go to the dentist when we need to and stuff, and it's not all subject to how long did our schoolwork.
That's really helpful.
It's been a good.
So your version of asking for help then was to move to online classes.
Yes, to move to online classes, and then to ask my husband for accountability for the big things, and to just like say out loud, I burnt out. At the end of last year, I fully burnt out, and so I panicked in August. I was like, I can't do it. Like, and so we started super small. I had 3 things on my list every day, and one of the things I really wanted to do this year was like, read out loud to my kids. I hate it. Hester for years has been like, "Good morning, basket. Go read aloud." And then she'll tell me these stories of like, after dinner, we all sat in the living room and we had dessert, and I read to the children. And I'm like, after dinner, I'm locking myself in my bedroom. Good night, everyone. And so, yes,
That's
great.
mine too.
So that was one of my things I wanted to do. Just like read out loud to the kids, and they love it.
And you're reading out loud to the kids.
I'm reading out loud to the kids.
So
You're learning too.
yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Look at that. You know.
So would you say that like by going with online classes, you're compromising your homeschooling? Like you're not really homeschooling, or?
I mean, someone else is teaching my kid, but he's another grade of math and learning crazy, writing 6-paragraph essays and like really, really flourishing. So if that makes me not legit. I don't care because my kid is happy. She's there at home.
I'm only throwing that out there because there is this idea, this school of thought that if you don't do it yourself, then you're not actually a legit homeschooler. And so, yes, as someone who also uses online classes, or if you ask someone to come in your house and help you, you're still asking for external, resources to teach your children. So, like, I think it is 100,000% legit to go with online classes, tutors, anything. I think the point of homeschooling is you're managing their education.
I mean, would you rather have like a legit homeschooler badge and have your child struggling
Yes.
and have yourself burnt out and angry and sad? Like, compromise your relationship so that when they're adults, they don't want to hang out with you.
I'm not homeschooling.
Yeah.
So that,
I watched you do that. It was awful. You hated it. I hated it. Like, or you can, get the help that's available to you. That's going to look different depending on your circumstances. And watch your kids thrive and form relationships and have more capacity and show up as a present and kind parent. That's way better, I think.
I'm with you. I
mean, I've done burnt out and I've done outsourcing, and I'm just gonna say over here is better. Happier.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, are you still using the same plan as you had in year one? But I think we've heard a resounding no. No. Okay.
I was actually really determined that I was not going to hop down to different curriculums like my mom did. I was not going to keep changing.
You were going to be the perfect homeschooler.
I was going to find one that I liked and stick to it, because I do that. I stick to things.
Right. Of course.
Did you have to
And then you
point
started
out,
teaching
"I'm sorry
children."
that I judged you for
I really should. I'm gonna
She would love that.
I'm going to see her next week if she watches this. I'm sorry, Mom. After preschool, that was my thought. I found this actual preschool curriculum. I was like, I'm not sticking to a curriculum. I just wanted it because it looked so fun. It had all these books to read. I was like, this is what we're doing. So grade 12, we are sticking with this. And then I enrolled, and I was like, well, oh no, now I have to change my plan. And then the next year, that didn't work. And that's what I started to realize, it wasn't a bad thing to stick around. Changing your curriculum can just mean that you're learning better what works for your child.
Yeah.
Because like we already said earlier, what worked for my oldest did not work well for my son.
Yeah.
And so in a way I felt like a bit of a failure a couple times. Like, well, this is like I was gonna stick to this. I don't know why. I wasn't gonna be impressing anyone else because they didn't know what I was picking.
Or really care about it.
Or really care, and then, but why do I have this expectation of myself that I need to stick to what I picked and like prove that I can be consistent with it all the way through? Yeah. Because sometimes it's not the right fit.
Yeah.
And also, by child number 5, if you're teaching the same curriculum over and over and over again, bored out of your mind.
Yes. And also, by child number 5, you don't need to teach reading.
Yeah.
They learn it by osmosis.
Also, you don't really actually need a curriculum anymore at that point.
No.
Like, you have taught reading 4 times over. You know how to teach reading.
I got
You are
to
now
my
qualified.
son, who was number 4, and my girls, when my oldest was 3.5, for 2.5, my son was 4. Close together. 2.5 years.
You're amazing.
So when I was teaching my twins to read, my oldest learned to read. The next year, my twins learned to read. My son was 2. Constantly. He did not want to go and play. He wanted to be right there where we were. Not really doing school. He didn't like that. He wanted to be right there all the time. So the next 2 years later, when his turn, he's officially in kindergarten. He's like, I already know all this.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. He's such a funny little guy. I was like, okay, well, we're gonna go through it.
Yeah.
He knew all of it, and he was like starting to read, and I did not teach him.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew everything.
Some people in this room taught 0 of their children to read.
One. I taught 1.
Sort of. A little.
yeah, I think so. One of the things I like to say too when you're homeschooling is always teach to the oldest, right?
Yeah.
And so, do you find like there's to some degree you're teaching to the oldest, and the rest of them they just get it.
Or you find like a really funny like hole that was missed.
Oh, yes.
Like, sometimes my
You
5-year-old will
think
be
they
like,
got it?
Yeah.
wait, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, we didn't explicitly go over that. And as soon as you fill it in, it's fine. They have the rest
Yes.
going on, but
Yeah, there are those.
That's true.
times.
That's yeah. The poor youngest. They'll be really smart and really dumb. We won't know where it is. Yeah, somewhere in there. So, Jessica, let's start with you because you've already said your husband has a job where you can live off of one income. Okay, and that is an incredible privilege.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're giving up a career, and you don't have alone time when your kids go off to school to get all the things done. There are places like right near your house where you could bring your kids and they will teach your children, right? So what's in it for you? Why are you homeschooling for you?
for me, not for the kids.
Yeah. Why are you still doing this? You got burnt out. All the things.
I don't know if I've ever thought of this. Well, I will say like I really value the time that I get to spend. I love watching them learn things. I love watching them form friendships. I feel incredibly blessed because my kids get along really well. I think partly because they have to. And they obviously fight, but they've learned how to resolve things very quickly because there's, I'm not your friend anymore. You don't have any other options. Okay? All the other kids on the street are at school, and it's your siblings, no one. And I think that that's really beautiful in a way. Yeah, I love the conversations that we get to have, the things that come up. I love relearning the things, right? You're like going through. I don't have a very good memory, and so we'll be like doing history. History is something I love, and oh, I forgot that happened, or it happened in that order. And so it just keeps like the learning fresh in a way that's really cool. And hearing their perspective on things, like they teach me things I've never considered, or they ask questions and I'm like, man, that's a really good question. So I really just think like the quality of time that we get to spend together and that we get to have, and then our time in the evening, we get to spend it as a family. There isn't homework, and there aren't meltdowns, and there is no having to talk through why they couldn't focus all day because they had an interaction with a friend and they didn't know how to handle it. I think that we have friends who have kids in school, and it's just phenomenal, and I think it's done really well. But I've talked to a lot of people who their kids get home from school and they're teaching them that, and they're doing all of that fill in work with them because their kids are getting missed or it's not getting taught, or they've had a substitute for weeks anymore. And that's when I say, you're already homeschooling. You're already doing it. You may as well just be doing it earlier in the day. Yeah, and they could have time to like play and be kids
and come grocery shopping and drive you.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's the best. This is how we learn spatial awareness. And yes, I do have less alone time than I would maybe like, although my youngest is 5 now, so that makes a really big difference. Like when they're tiny, you feel like you're never ever gonna get like I can be like, I'm going in the shower, no one died, and it's fine, no one died. My oldest can now officially babysit for short periods of time if everyone's in a good mood.
Game changer.
So
Game changer.
yeah, you will be. We have to really play it by ear. It's not an all the time thing. But and again, like we have on both sides of the family retired grandparents who live with us, and we are so spoiled. My father-in-law will get bored. He's 7 years old, and he'll be like, "You need some alone time today? Do you have any errands to run? Can I come hang out with the kids?" And
Yeah.
yeah,
Could we get his
How bored is he?
does want more grandchildren, so he will happily adopt her. I mean, every time I come back, he's like, Boston, and he goes home and naps. But yeah, so we're incredible to have that support. Gotta ask. I'm not gonna ask him either.
Oh no.
I'll be having the
No.
worst day ever, and then I'm like, out for an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to think of it. We don't think of it till later, but it's so good to ask for help with advice.
So,
I'm not good at asking.
Jessica, what I'm hearing from you too is, like you said earlier, with the kids and extended family, you like to see that they have relationships like intergenerational, and they.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from you is like that actually is enriching your life as well, like your relationships with like your children
Yeah.
and your nephews and nieces, and with your in-laws, and with all like your intergenerational relationships are actually really rich as well because of this.
Yeah, that's true. And because we homeschool, and so there are people who work in homeschool, and well done you. I don't do that, but it does mean that I'm at home. So like if I have a friend whose kids have a pro D day and they have to go to work, I'll be like, oh, drop them off at our house. You know, we can be a place where other kids can come and spend time, and I really value that. I love my kids' friends. I love it when they're over. It's chaotic, but I feel very privileged to homey to other
Thank you.
people. Yeah.
How about you, Madison? What's in it for you?
I like what you said about getting to relearn things myself. I hadn't really thought of that, but I have really enjoyed. Well, first of all, math makes a lot more sense to me now because I'm starting at the beginning and I'm going through all the way, and that's been really cool. Understanding things a little bit better. I loved kind of seeing it from a new perspective, and so excited about trying to get my kids to see how exciting this is.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Guys, you have to hear me on this. Like, don't miss it like I did the first time. So that's definitely a really cool. I didn't say that I have enjoyed spend so much time with my kids and seeing them grow up and watching them. The one who knows them the best, and having that, just knowing I'm not missing a lot of their childhood. And I'm not bored. I'm not in a place at all times. I am missing certain things, of course, but I am there with them every day. And I love that. And them daily, still things that like also changing me, making me more. I didn't know it's in me. A whole lot at home after I graduated. I was like, I got this. I was pretty well prepared to have my own children, and then I did. Yeah, mothering in general, homeschooling all day, and teach them things they don't want to learn. They're confused or angry about, really showing me my needs and just how the Lord is using it in my life. Hard, but really encouraging. Needed a savior really until I had kids and I was homeschooling. That was the hardest part of having kids, is kind of say and not who I thought it was, and it's good. It's totally good. bad thing. We don't want to.
Yeah, it presses you, and then that fragrance comes out, and the question is, what is the fragrance?
Yes, yes.
Right?
What is being spilled when
Yes.
this cup is shaken? Right?
Yes.
What is in here?
Yes, and then all those prayers. Okay, Jesus, I need some help.
Yes, I need help. Right? Yep.
Yeah.
And that's also coming back to just being able to ask for help, crying out to the Lord
Yeah.
all day long, instead of waiting till I'm like at my wits' end.
Yeah.
In the closet, like,
And
okay.
Yeah.
He does hear us. He
Yeah.
does give us practical solutions, practical help constantly. I'm saying, oh, why didn't I pray about that sooner?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Even picking curriculum, he's interested in that.
Yeah,
Like, he
I
gives
totally
us
agree.
such good wisdom when we
Okay, this has been an incredible evening. I've enjoyed this so much. So I want to say thank you for doing this. I hope that it's been encouraging and helpful. And I want to open it up to anyone here who may have any questions. We have about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions for Jessica or Madison, by all means, love to hear it. Paula.
How much time do you spend prepping? I bought open and go. So.
Good.
And it's really going to come down to like your personality and your teaching style. I find like reading, like I find open and go curriculum frustrating. Like I don't like to read it verbatim. We tried teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. Again with my fourth child. But reading has been a little dicey for us with a couple kids, and so I was like, oh, maybe this will be really helpful. And then I was like, actually, I hate this style of. So but I don't do a lot of conversation. And a lot of me being like, oh, hey, let's figure this out together.
That it was helpful on days when my brain was well, and I discussed. Say, well, okay, so I could say, you don't have to know. I had a math curriculum at the beginning. I loved it. So much at the beginning to understand how this worked, what this program was, what were these certain. There were so many moving parts. This thing that's called this, it's up in that cabinet there. All these different pieces, these cards. Well, that's cards. I couldn't ask. But the open and go stuff, down and read it. And my mother-in-law has come several times for them to. He doesn't know what we're using for kids, but when we open it, it says it. And yeah, like I felt stressed, and I had that comfort of knowing. Curriculum first. And, okay, now you're approved. Yeah.
Yes, in the back row. Who's the hardest grade to teach?
Who's the hardest child? That's my kid. I don't. I'm probably kindergarten with you. Honestly, the first year was like the most terrifying because I was like, I'm gonna mess it up and he's never gonna learn anything. Not true. What I realized about homeschooling, and probably not everyone feels this way, but to me, it's just an extension of parenting. Like you taught your kid how to sleep and how to eat and how to hopefully tie their shoes and how to not get run over by cars because you stay on the sidewalk, and then you teach them phonetics and how to read, and you teach them love reading, and you teach them about bugs and math and how we greet people in the store and how we answer questions, what information we give to strangers and what information we don't give to strangers, and how to navigate like But I think the first year that I did it, I was just like, it's gonna be a disaster, and then realizing no, it's not. And you know what? Some days are a disaster, and you go back to your kids and you be like, I'm sorry, like I lost my patience, and it was not a good. When you mess up, because you'll mess up, then you fix the problem. This is how you.
Life
Yep.
skill, yeah. Making mistakes is a really important skill to learn to work through.
I like to model that one a lot.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm
Really
so
like
good
to
at
make
that.
sure.
That's
Yes.
solid.
Yes. We
So I have
There's
one likes math, other likes one is better.
Okay.
What is your recommendation? I teach them
That's a good question. I feel like my twins are similar in certain personality traits, but also very different in others. So both of my twins, both of them. So that's great. Usually, hurts. Math. Like one gets it, but I try to sit through because I'm kind of like I don't have a lot of time in my day. Son who's just finished oldest who still needs quite a bit of help. She has a few challenges, just with very minor challenges, but she needs my help a bit. And then my twins, and then I have my father. So I don't feel like I can do a math lesson. I can but I guess that have other children or just the two. So maybe you could make it work too. If one needs a little more help than the other, then one-on-one time is probably best. That one. No, I feel like that might be something to try both ways. Better? Does that make sense? I don't know. Is that maybe say I'm not sure. I haven't really tried doing it separate on purpose because I just don't have time for that. I have had to do separate lessons for my friend. Got behind, and the other one was like, "Well, I'm already on a different lesson," and so she's kind of they're on separate lessons.
No, that sounds like like advice you'd give. Like generally, it's like yes, teach the strengths to the one who's strong at it, and spend more time with the other one. But also, they recognize too that certain people have certain strengths that they always will be stronger in, right? And so if one of them is just really good at math and one is good at language, and that's just how they're going to be, that's okay too, right? So bring the math up to an adequate level with the English major, and just let them excel in English. So we want to do the best we can, but also allow them to thrive where they're really good. So yeah, go for it.
My absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
my grades. I work hard and I keep proud of them. And then as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
I love homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's my whole life.
Thank you, Mandy. That's really yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's very helpful. Any
And I don't know if you'll be able to answer how to write a homeschool break from the get go out of the gate. So we're looking at homeschooling. Oh, and just brick and mortar school and pulling out. And I guess it's more the challenges of unschooling. I think they're quite happy to hear possibly, but just how that fits into life much of our life has been around the school year and my husband. So, how to kind of how did you, anyone in the room, how kids reacted to not seeing their friends all the time, not having all that extracurricular stuff. We have a lot of friends who are homeschool families, so it's not completely foreign to them. But the idea of not seeing their friends every day and not having field trips with their friends and all of that, and not having, not having that, I don't think I will be fun.
Yeah, there are people here.
Yeah.
Who
Yes.
always at
I
that.
figured
This,
you know.
yes.
It's not us.
Well, I'm a bit younger, so but I also have had it where it's both ways. Where half are we're at school and half are at school. It takes a good year for them to just actually unwind, to de-school, to get it out of their system. They're gonna think that you're not teaching them anything. They're actually becoming dumber this year because you're not, because it just looks so different.
Right.
And then about 9 months in, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, my whole life is school. And that's what you want. You want them to realize our whole lives is learning, our whole lives is school. It is a grieving process. It is a mourning process. You just have to walk out those kind of moments with them. And I found that it got, character days were a little bit more prevalent in the earlier years when they were younger, but too because I think they didn't want to necessarily listen to me. And I just realized that my goalposts had to move that we weren't maybe going to get all the things that I wanted done. I'm going to let you know it's not that much I had on my goalpost as it is. But still, because one of mine would react so negatively to schoolwork that I literally would spend an hour after I said we're doing schoolwork to calm him down just from the chaos he decided to create within our home, calm him down to even get him back to the table. By then, I'm fried. We're all fried. I'm done. I'm not doing anything anymore. So yeah, and now he's going into grade 9. I just started now realizing I can put end dates on him and end dates on my family, and we can have that kind of structure. It's taken a lot of learning about myself and the person I am. It's taken a lot of learning of what you've had to undo, and maybe even the things that they think of themselves. You didn't know that they thought about themselves that way. Like some memories came up for us. One kid, my one, was trying to read out loud. I literally hate reading out loud. Personally. And one of his friends went like this to him to like tell him he should stop because he was doing such a horrible job, but he was trying. And then he was like, I'm never trying again. So like I didn't know that for like 3 years after we started. So reluctant to looking foolish and making a mistake. So yeah, it's a process for sure. And unschooling does not mean not learning. It might just mean not structure. And you guys can kind of dabble when you want to dabble, or it's museums, it's curiosity quests of like, let's deep dive into this topic that you guys really want to learn about. So all of that. And I don't know how old your kids are.
Well, I have the 7.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All boys. It's just, I think too, I'm hearing like, I like how you were saying because the other kind of question that I had was when we're talking about the school time. I see like my boys needing like movie time. So
Yes.
do you just have
Yes.
like your, we have our 2 hours in the morning and that's it? Or do you kind of do like, I've got a half an hour here, or I've got a 45 minutes here, and 45 minutes here,
Okay.
45 minutes like.
Yeah, so this is super trial and error, and it's going to be different for every kid because I, again, like with neurodivergent kids, they
Yeah, I
move
know.
a lot, but I have a couple kids that transition for like the death of them. So I really had to figure out like I actually have to limit the movement part because transitioning there and back, right? Like we have an indoor trampoline and an outdoor trampoline and a sensory swing and blah blah blah. But if it gets really hairy And then I will be like, go jump on the trampoline for 15 minutes. And then I usually make myself a cup of coffee and like have a chat with Jesus and do some deep breathing.
Yes.
But I really try not to make too much of a habit of it because it is really disruptive and it will disrupt everybody else. So, but again, it's going to be trial and error. And sometimes it's things like if you keep them local, do 10 push-ups. We've been working a lot on push-ups in our house. Or run up and down the stairs 10 times. We had for a while this old mattress in our living room, and they would like somersault till they memorized.
Like my kids need to be creative before they. So I got them all like a doodle book, and we just sit at the table for 15, 20 minutes. And then out of nowhere, they just were in it. But that doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen every time. But that worked for a long time. Loved it.
And we're the opposite. My kids, when they start playing, they get deep in, and if I have to pull them out, then it's chaos. So we have to crack it out in the morning, otherwise they will just get
Or have interesting attitudes.
The attitude.
We have a lot
oh
of sass in our house. 3 girls in a row.
And then a boy and then another girl.
So-
Just to piggyback off of what they said also, when I started homeschooling, my grade 6 and 7, and managing expectations from the get-go. Guys, this isn't going to look like school. It's not.
Yeah.
We're doing this at home. It gets to look how it looks. And getting their input, I'm not always going to do what they think I should do, but it's good to hear what their expectations were so that I could kind of like go, okay, well, this is what I was planning to do, but I can kind of alter it like this, and then it'll kind of look like what this child thinks. But also understanding that they're really set in the school routine. So we did take a year of like, we de-schooled, like what everybody says, de-school. I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but for me, it meant it meant we didn't open a lot of curriculums. I didn't even buy curriculum. Like September came and I had nothing. Hey, I'm really going wild here. Like this is so rogue, and I was enrolled. So like, I'm not anymore, but I was then. But I did eventually get a math curriculum because I figured out which one was going to work for us. But we read a lot of books and we explored games that taught them whatever I thought was valuable at the time. And we started with co-op. But we didn't focus on, are you doing this in English? Are you doing this in social science? What is ADST anyways? I didn't check any boxes my first year. And yeah, technically those enrolled report cards reflected that, but those report cards are so far, like nobody's ever going to see those. And my kids came out of our first year going, wow, Mom, we love homeschool. And not all of them hated public school. So that was a win. And they still look back on our first year and they're like, yeah, no, this was great. And I never want to go back to public school again. And they're now in grade, well, I guess we're starting grade 11, grade 10, and grade something. 7. But
they will be educated.
but the way that I started, like, very much evolved by year 2. And I went into this, I mean, yes, I was homeschooled, but I didn't know what I was doing with children. And I was starting with like what felt like fully grown kids. It's gonna evolve and it's gonna change, and you're gonna walk into it going, I don't know how to do this. And then you're gonna see everybody else doing it, but I don't do it that way. I must be doing it wrong. You're not. Because you're going to figure out what actually works for you, and you're going to learn your kids so well that by the end of this, you're going to be like, we do it different. This is what works for us. Every year that I've homeschooled has looked completely different. And like these ladies, no, it's really not, because even my twin sister and I don't school the same.
And it
Okay.
is helpful to get other people's perspectives, right?
Oh,
Sometimes you're
for
like,
sure.
oh man, I never tried that. I should try that. But
That's not what it is.
No,
I'm
no.
hearing.
No.
Definitely.
Try
Yeah,
other
learn from
things.
others.
Learn
Don't
from
try to
others.
make yourself look like
Yeah.
Also,
because you
learn.
fail
torture
every
yourself.
Right, and if somebody says to you, "I did this thing, it worked perfectly. You should do this thing,"
Mhm.
and then you do that thing, and it's absolutely an utter flop, then it's like, That
I'm a
doesn't mean
failure.
you're a failure or that you don't know how to do it. It just means it didn't work for you. That's it. Full stop. Okay, as much as I would love to keep going, we are at 8:30, so I really need to wrap this up. So thank you both very much for being here. I've enjoyed this. Can we give them an applause?